Okay, the title of this is pretty funny. Free sample? Well, this is a basic, and I mean basic, lesson in chess, which is good. You need to see this. You see it at some point anyway. This is the basic thing known as double attack. So, when I do my other videos, and I haven't done one in a while, but when you solve a problem like this, you want to look at, in any order, but this is the order I just run through them mentally: checks, captures, piece contacts, stuff like rook to g6 where it attacks the queen, board situation. Indirectly, board situation is almost always the key, but whatever. So what happens here is that you look at this king, and the king has one square open, which is d7, which creates a diagonal. This whole diagonal is open. An opportunity is what you should look at this. Objectively, the king is safer on b8, just like this white king is safest on b1 in this position. Okay, if you said what square is the king the most safe, black b8, king white b1. Okay, this is super easy. So this is a basic. We're going to remove this power of this rook. This rook has horizontal power. Well, if we play rook takes rook, knight takes rook, we have, number one, created a new square for our queen to check his king. And oh, by the way, what happens if queen goes to g4? Check. Well, hopefully you see the answer is it attacks whatever sits here. Now the problem is, with this rook there, it would just play rook takes queen. But if we take our rook and kill his rook and put a dummy on here that does not have the horizontal power. So this is what I call trading the power of the piece. You want to take the power of one piece, which is the horizontal rook, and remove it. And he swapped out for either a bishop or a knight, which does not have the horizontal power. So watch what happens. It's fairly basic. Power destroyed. Now, what squares do we have to check this guy? You should say we have e6. We also have g4. Now, how convenient that we have these squares on this diagonal line that I talked about earlier. So which one of these two squares do you think a queen check would be most fruitful? I'm sure that you guys instantly recognized this move. It's game over, chump. Well, it's not really game over, but it will be soon. You still are going to have to cash this in, which is another level of skill. We use this to win a piece. All right, we won a knight. White is completely winning, but you have to be careful. The weaknesses here down the road is this h-pawn and this rook. Now, since your king is not exposed, he's unlikely to be able to produce a combination that's going to nab this rook. So white is going to have to find a way to consolidate his material advantage. We don't have to worry about back ranks because the a2 pawn is missing and we have knight c1, whatever. So basically what's going to happen is we're going to need to pile up and try to use our pieces to win one of these kingside pawns. Kingside meaning e through h. This will be the original kingside, and this will be the new kingside after he castled, but it's still the queen side. It gets confusing. So normally we don't change the term, even though the new kingside quote is where the king resides. A through D is the queen side, even if the king is there. The king side is E through H. So these pawns are well defended, not going to be easy to get to those. So You would have opportunities potentially, to try and make some maneuvers here, but coordinating your forces to attack G7 and or H6 probably a little bit better. Stuff like queen to G4 will be a very powerful move if you get that in. You can't really stop every move you want to make, but this, wins the piece is fine. It's not really game over to the lower rated players. You're going to have to find out how to cash this in without blowing your advantage, and that's part of the difficulty of chess. So just giving you this heads up idea. It's a major winning position for white, and good players are going to cash this like nobody's business. But how do you get to be good? Technique, baby. You got to watch the good players play. When you go to a tournament, you want to watch when you're not playing your games. Your game is first, okay? You play your game, win or lose or draw, it doesn't matter. When that's over, you have nothing to do. You can leave, you could go do stuff, whatever. The smart guys who want to get better are watching the good players that are still playing, and they're trying. They'll see top players in that tournament, and they'll watch this position. Man, what is this guy going to do? And it's like, it's sort of boring on the surface, okay? But what's happening here is the smart player who's trying to get better is like, well, I'm watching, really good player A against really good player B, and you see a position like this, like, man, what is black going to do? What should black be doing? And it's not obvious, okay? You're going to go, man, I don't know. Good. You watch the good players, and they're going to show you. Black is going to play stuff like queen to F6 or rook to F8. He's going to try. Queen to F6 is really strong because it gives you the anchor position that makes it difficult to get to this weak pawn, which is G7. This is weak to a frontal attack of the rook, also to a diagonal attack, theoretically, of the queen, or a double frontal with queen G4, rook G1. So, that's the kind of thing that you have to watch out for. Another possibility that white's going to have is to play rook G1, or rook to E1, or rook to F1. Attack this pawn, or possibly on the F file, go rook F5, bring this over here, and you're going to be threatening to checkmate this guy. So you're going to have some deep penetrating positions for possibly rook to A8. Rook takes rook would be nice to a degree, depending. Not an easy game to win, but it's winning. And the good player is going to win this. And it could take another hour, okay, or maybe longer. You got to win what you got to win when you got to win it. They're not going to just roll over and die. Sometimes the guy's like, oh man, forget. Sometimes they resign, sometimes they don't. If they don't resign, you're going to have to make them resign. That's what, that's how my dad would say it. Make them resign. Okay? Stuff like knight to A5. Potentially a good move because you have queen to B3 as a threat. You play knight to A5, you play queen to B3, you're threatening to do some business. Getting that knight to C4. Or you could also play knight to C1 and play knight to D3. Again, creating some opportunities. Very, very safe defensively, blocking the file of the queen and the rook. That knight on D3 would be a really good piece to block those pieces, to allow your queen and rook to work together to try and overpower that G7 pawn. Or, come in some other way. So, there's a lot of stuff to do, but this is kind of the stuff that happens that helps you become a good player. No one just falls off the turnip truck and goes, ha-ha, I'm a good player today. Doesn't work that way. You got to work at it. It's like muscles. You know how you get muscles? You go pump iron in the gym. You don't pump iron, you don't have muscles. Just that simple. So, you guys know what to do. I'll talk to you later.